Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you with us today. Look, if you're the kind of person who just loves unpacking massive, mind-bending concepts, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to impartially map out some of the most highly speculative, absolutely wide-ranging theories out there regarding ancient technology, pulling directly from our source material. We're going to look at some very specific anomalies in the historical record and explore the extraordinary claims that researchers and ancient astronaut theorists have built around them. Now, just to be clear, we aren't here to prove or disprove anything today. We are just here to strictly decode the arguments and look at what the source material actually says.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, harnessing Earth's energy. Second, pyramids as power plants. Third, ancient genetic engineering. And finally, evidence of early flight. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Harnessing Earth's energy. So the foundation of this whole theory really kicks off back in 1898, when a Berlin Museum excavation team made this incredible discovery at the Sun Temple in Abu Ghorab, Egypt. They unearthed the base of an absolutely massive obelisk, which they estimated once stood over 160 feet tall. And what's interesting is, according to ancient Egyptian building texts from Edfu, Abu Ghorab wasn't just a monument. It was known as the place of the gods, literally a site where the ancients supposedly connected with divine energies.
Now, mainstream scholars usually look at this as purely spiritual or symbolic, right? But ancient astronaut theorists like Jason Martell and David Childress propose something entirely different. They point to the specific material used here. These obelisks are primarily constructed from granite, which is a stone incredibly rich in quartz crystal. Childress actually suggests that these obelisks weren't just monuments to look at, they acted more like giant acupuncture needles for the Earth, placed deliberately to focus and harness actual physical energy from the planet.
So you might be wondering, how exactly would that even work in the real world? Well, theorists point to a very real, well-documented scientific principle called piezoelectricity. Piezo basically just means vibrating or oscillating. Because of its specific crystalline structure, quartz actually has the proven ability to convert mechanical vibrations into electrical energy, and vice versa. I mean, this is literally the exact same technology that powers a modern quartz wristwatch. By grounding these fringe claims in the real-world function of quartz, theorists argue that the ancients possessed a highly advanced, high-tech understanding of materials.
And here is where the source material draws an absolutely fascinating parallel to modern history. Think back to July 1899 and Nikola Tesla. Tesla famously experimented with transmitting electricity wirelessly through the air, using the Earth's natural conductivity, what he called standing waves. He built the Wardenclyffe Tower specifically to broadcast power to ships and anti-gravity airships. Theorists propose that ancient obelisks functioned almost exactly like Tesla's tower, acting as giant crystal antennas that made up a global wireless energy network.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, pyramids as power plants. If the obelisks were the antennas of this ancient power grid, what was the generator? Well, according to researchers like Christopher Dunn, the Great Pyramid of Giza wasn't built as a royal tomb at all, but rather as a geomechanical device, literally an ancient power plant.
Let's trace exactly how this theory builds chronologically by looking at the exploration inside the Great Pyramid's so-called air shafts. Mainstream archaeologists generally consider these to be ventilation ducts or maybe symbolic passageways for the soul, and they were first discovered way back in 1872. But then, in 1993, a remote-controlled robot traveled up this tiny shaft in the Queen's Chamber and found a deliberate blockage, a closed door with metal clamps. Fast forward to 2011, and a micro-snake camera finally slipped past that door.
And man, what that 2011 camera revealed adds some serious fuel to the power plant theory. Right behind the door, they found a hidden room containing copper fittings. Intriguingly, the back of these metal loops appeared highly corroded, and scanning the floor revealed red markings that theorist Chris Dunn interprets as actual electrical symbols. So for those advocating the power plant theory, these are not just symbolic tomb decorations, they are the functional, mechanical remnants of a giant machine.
Dunn actually breaks down exactly how this massive machine could have operated. According to his microwave generator theory, chemicals, specifically hydrated zinc and dilute hydrochloric acid, were poured down the shafts and mixed in the Queen's Chamber, triggering a reaction that produced hydrogen gas. This gas then traveled straight up to the King's Chamber. Meanwhile, engineer John Cadman theorizes that Nile River water was actually pumped into a subterranean chamber, creating massive hydraulic pulses. These mechanical vibrations supposedly traveled up through the pyramid, energized the hydrogen atoms, and emitted a powerful microwave energy beam right out of the structure.
It is an incredibly elaborate, highly precise geomechanical theory, but, it naturally begs a massive question. If ancient builders actually possessed this immense, wireless microwave power, what exactly were they doing with it? As we transition to our next section, the source material suggests this energy might have fueled some truly bizarre, highly advanced scientific pursuits.
Let's look at Section 3, Ancient Genetic Engineering. To explain this massive leap, we kind of have to look at some rather disturbing modern phenomena first.
Our source material brings in UFO investigator Linda Moulton Howe. She has spent decades investigating global animal mutilations. Horses, cows, domestic animals found all over the world with the exact same pattern of extremely precise, bloodless excisions. Howe claims a government source once gave her a pretty chilling explanation for all this. They told her these mutilations are part of a genetic harvest conducted by non-human intelligences. Theorists basically take this modern concept and look backward, suggesting that similar, Frankenstein-like genetic experiments were practiced by early civilizations, perhaps guided by those exact same non-human entities.
Now, what's really wild is how the historical texts come into play here. Giorgio Toukalos points out that in ancient Sumeria, which is widely considered humankind's very first civilization, the texts are absolutely filled with references to the Anunnaki, and that term translates to those who from the heavens came. So the question is, could these descending beings have been the architects of the bizarre chimeras and human-animal hybrids we see depicted all over ancient Egyptian and Sumerian art?
To look for physical evidence of these genetic experiments, researchers point to a really strange excavation from 1851. French Egyptologist Auguste Mariette was exploring the Apis bull tomb in Saqqara, fully expecting to find carefully mummified sacred bulls. Instead, he pops open this 80-ton sealed sarcophagus and finds a foul-smelling black mass of solid bitumen, and embedded in it, the crushed bone fragments of 7 completely different types of animals just mixed together. So theorists ask, were ancient priests desperately trying to destroy horrifying genetic mistakes, literal hybrid monsters, so they could never return?
All right, so we've got theories of global wireless energy and ancient DNA splicing. If we entertain the source material's premise that these ancient civilizations possessed science that matched or even exceeded our modern capabilities, we have to ask, if they had advanced genetics and limitless power, did they also conquer the skies?
Which lands us at our final stop today. Section 4, Evidence of Early Flight. We're going to return to Saqqara, Egypt, often called the City of the Dead because of its massive ancient burial grounds. It was here in 1891 that French archaeologists unearthed a 3rd century BC tomb belonging to an official named Padi Imana. And inside, they found a very peculiar wooden artifact.
This little artifact became known as the Saqqara Bird. And get this, it was found right beside a papyrus bearing the inscription, "I want to fly." Now, for decades, it just sat in a museum alongside other generic bird figurines. But then in 1969, Dr. Khalil Masiha noticed something was kind of off about it. The wings are thick in the middle and they taper at the ends, which is a highly modern aerodynamic design. Furthermore, it lacks the typical horizontal rudder of a bird. Real birds don't need vertical rudders because of their natural architecture, but airplanes, they absolutely do. To figure out if this thing was actually a blueprint for a flying machine, aviation expert Simon Sanderson built a scale model back in 2006. He made it 5 times larger than the original and put it straight into a wind tunnel. The results were staggering, honestly. Testing it at a 10-degree angle of attack, the model produced 4 times its own weight and lift. With the addition of a simple elevator tailpiece, which researchers strongly suspect was just lost to history, the computer models confirmed it was a highly developed, entirely airworthy glider. They theorize it could have been launched into the air using a catapult or even a bungee cord system.
And here's the thing, these aerodynamic anomalies aren't just isolated to Egypt. What if I told you similar artifacts were found 7,000 miles away in Colombia? Tomb robbers searching the Magdalena River early in the 20th century found artifacts from the pre-Columbian Tolima civilization, dating back about 1,500 years. Among hundreds of gold figurines depicting regular insects and fish, there were about a dozen that looked astonishingly like modern-day delta-wing fighter jets, complete with upright tail fins. No way that's just a coincidence, right?
When you stack all these incredibly specific technical anomalies up, from piezoelectric obelisks to aerodynamic gliders, author Graham Hancock sums up the overarching argument of these ancient astronaut theorists perfectly. He says, "We're a species with amnesia. We don't really remember who or what we are." The source material basically argues that these artifacts are the lingering fingerprints of a highly advanced, perhaps even non-human technological era.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to ponder today. Are we missing a forgotten episode in human history? Whether you view these artifacts as purely symbolic art or as the actual remnants of alien technology, the physical evidence definitely challenges us to question the textbook history we were all taught in school. Thank you so much for exploring these wild and fascinating theories with me today. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the evidence, and I will see you in the next explainer.